Colossians 3, 1 through 14 is where we're at. We kind of started a little bit of 5 through 9, and I didn't write anything down. I was going to write something down, but I don't think I got to the point where I wrote any stuff down. The first 4 verses we went through talking about how, the whole of these verses, I kind of put it as like good advice. Paul's giving us good advice. Excuse me, he's trying to get us to truly understand some great ways about our Christian life and how to live them. If you remember, in chapter 1, he told us to focus on Christ. Well, he told the people in Colossae, who he had not visited, he wrote them a letter, and he told them, hey, Christ is the focal point of who you are. Don't let anybody take that from you or disrupt that in any way. Then he goes into chapter 2 and talks about how sometimes that Christian life will be difficult for standing for what you believe, but it's important to do that, and that the wonderful mystery of the grace of God has been revealed to us, and it is something that we need to stand for. And then as he moves into chapter 3, he talks about how we are dead to that old life. Like, he kind of brings it together a little bit here and says, no, you're dead to that old life. You have been, that old life is gone now to you, as if you died to it, and now you've been risen to a new life. So that brings about new expectations, that brings about new goals, that brings about a new opportunity for you. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, what he's trying to get the people of Colossae and us as well to understand. Think of it in those terms. That idea is dead to you. That thing is dead to you. We think about things in psychological terms. Psychology, the study of the human brain and how it works, tells us that sometimes when you have something on your mind that needs to be accomplished, it's at the forefront of your brain, right? When it's there, it is on your mind. That's the phrase that we use. It's on your mind. Until you find completion to that task, or you find resolution to that task. I used to, all the time in California, I used to go get in the car. I'd open the garage door. I'd get my car, I'd pull out, and as I'm pulling out, I hit the garage door button so that the garage door would go down. I'd back out, and I'd take off down the road. And what happens is when you have that thing that's on your mind, it's at the forefront of your mind, once you find resolution to it, your brain doesn't want to work on that anymore. It doesn't want to waste time on that anymore. So it takes that information and files it away in the back of your head. And it's gone now. And it becomes so routine that you do something, you accomplish it, and it automatically gets filed away that you don't think about it twice. There have been a couple of times I would drive down the road and I'd think to myself, did I hit the button to close my garage door? And then I'd have to turn around and drive back by and see. But I did, because I didn't waste any more time on that thought. It's filed away. In the same type of sense, hold on.
Oh, got it. Thank you so much.
In the same type of sense, 5-second rule, let's go. When you have the first kid, you're like, I gotta sterilize it. After you have 3 or 4, you're like,
Your standards low.
you're like, it's been on the floor like 10 seconds. Yeah. Bill's
Or you just take it and put it in your mouth.
Yeah, and you hand it to him. So in the same sense, I should say, it's almost like these things, this life that you had, it was something that was on your mind. It was who you were. It was your identity. But now that you are dead to it, it's been gone. It's now no longer part of who you are. It's something you need to put away or forget. And as you move forward in a new life, in a new representation of who you are in Christ. And that's what he tries to kind of tell us, is that we are raised with Christ. We need to seek things that are above, put our minds on things that are above. Our old life is gone. The new life we're locked into with Christ. And now we need to make sure that we are functioning in that space. That brings us to verses 5 through 9. And we kind of talked a little bit about, I kind of started a little bit of this. I remember starting a little bit about this, I'm thinking. I'll get yours too. There you go, 5-second rule. But in the same sense, he talks about us as kind of a mentor, giving us good advice on how to be able to function and to live in this new life, right? So I use the example, I think I used the example last time, of a trainer, like a physical trainer. Like if you want to get in shape, you go to a physical trainer. Hey, I want to lose some weight, I want to do this, I want to build strength, I want to do whatever it is that you want to do. And you tell them that, and in that space, they're going to require you or ask of you to put those other things away. Like, okay, so if you're going to do this, you need to be committed all the way. You can come and work out, but you need to also eat less sugar. And you need to not eat all the garbage stuff, you know what I mean? Because that's going to hinder your progress moving forward. You're going to do all this wonderful work. I was talking to somebody, I don't remember who it was. Oh yeah, I do remember who it was. I won't mention her name. But I was talking to somebody and they said, well, I've started going to the gym now, which is actually kind of a bummer because now that I feel like I'm working out more, I can eat more and do crazy things. And I'm like, well, that's not exactly what it's all about. Because you're hindering the progress that you could be making because you're not adhering to a better standard, so to speak. So this is kind of what he's trying to do this. Paul's trying to spiritually train us here in verses 5 through 9. So as we come off of verses 1 through 4, we need to focus our minds on things above. In that space, we need to set aside the things that could keep us from progressing forward and being able to develop where we want or need to be. And here, I think, if we read verses 5 through 9, there's a laundry list of things that are listed there. And to be honest with you, I think we can probably categorize this big long list into basically 3 areas. And I'll tell you what those 3 areas are. But let's read it here, verses 5 through 9. Now, I brought a special Bible with me here. It's a parallel Bible, and it has several different translations in it. So it will give me the opportunity to be able to see some of the other words that are used in some of the Bibles. Unfortunately, it does not have the English Standard Version, which I wish it did, but it does not. So if you have one, you can put that out there. Or a New Living. It has a New Living, but it doesn't have a New American Standard. That hurt. Okay, verse 5. Chapter 3, verse 5. Therefore, put to death your members. This is the translation I normally read, which is the New King James. Therefore, put to death your members, which are on the earth. This is the command. All right? In everything that follows, this is the command. Okay, so he already kind of told us that we are dead to that old life. We need to focus our minds on things above. So he's reiterating, therefore, that's what the therefore is there for. The therefore is to put all this stuff into practice, right? Focusing where you need to focus. Therefore, put to death your members, which are on the earth. Now, before we move forward, it's time, we need to make sure that we understand what this directive is for. If you look at this directive, what does it focus on as far as what we are to do? It tells us that we need to seek things which are above. We need to set our minds on things above. We need to understand that we are dead to our old life and our new life is locked in with Christ. And we have hope for his glorious return. What does that all focus around? As far as us is concerned, us as an individual, it's kind of a tricky question. This focuses around our thoughts, our brain, okay? This is how we view things. This is how we need to understand things. This is how we need to move forward. And then understanding that simple concept of where we're getting our heads right, you know? And if we get our heads right, what's the next thing to follow?
Get your heart right.
Your heart is good, but what is a byproduct of what we think?
Your actions.
Our actions. So if you look at the very first verse, verse 5, it says, therefore put to death what? Your members. What does that mean? What is your members? That's your physical part, right? So here, if we can get our heads right, then we need to now let our actions get right. Okay? Does that make sense? So here he's talking about, in verse 5, he says, put to death your members. Before, he was talking about you need to make sure that you get your mind right. Get your heart set where it needs to be. Now that you got your head right, what you do is a direct reflection of what you think or what you have in your mind, right? That's a direct reflection of it. You do things based off of what you believe, all right? If I don't think that going into this seedy part of town is healthy for me, I'm not going to go, right? Our actions are dictated by what we think or how we feel. So it says, therefore, put to death your members. So this next section that we're going to see is kind of revolved around what we're going to do, like how we're going to act. So you get your head right, and now let's see how that translates to what we do. Does that make sense?
Is members your body?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it starts off, and now what we're going to do, this is the command to get your actions or get your body in line with what your mind's doing. It gives us a big laundry list of things. And like I said, I think we could probably divide this into 3 areas. Let's read it, though. Therefore, put to death your members, which are on the earth: fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Because of these things, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you yourselves once walked when you lived in them. But now you yourselves are put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with its deeds. Let's take a stop right there. So we got a whole list of things that we got to do, right? Whole laundry list of things we got to do. And I think we could easily separate these into basically 3 groups, so that it would be easier for us to manage them in our heads. Because a lot of these words, just in the English language, some of these words are very similar to each other, right? And believe it or not, in the Greek, it's the same way. They're very similar to each other. If you were to look at a Greek New Testament, you would see how these words are connected with each other by in that manner. Okay, we're not going to look at that though. So if you want to, you can knock yourselves right out. But I'll try to explain it to you so that you can kind of understand that a little bit better. Let's get to this first area. So we're going to categorize these attitudes and these actions, right, into 3 groups. The first one here is Paul tells us to get rid of, I couldn't think of a better word, is sensuality. Okay? Look at verse 5. It says, put to death in your members, which are on the earth: fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness. Oh man, I need to read a different translation. Which is idolatry. That word gets me every time. So if we're looking at this group's behaviors, basically we're going to look at 4 practices here. Okay, 4 practices. We're going to divide this section into basically 2 groups, I guess you could say. And we're going to start with the first 4 actions, all right? And those 4 actions are fornication, uncleanness, passion, and evil desire, okay? We're going to stop right there with those first 4. And I think we can categorize those as kind of the idea of sensuality. And the reason I use that word is because it's kind of, I didn't know what other word to use that would kind of encompass the idea of all that we're looking at in these 4 words. So there you go. Anywho, let's start with fornication. Is there a different word there that you have instead of fornication? I got sexual immorality is in the new international version. I got sexual immorality is in the New Living Translation. Anything else?
About that same.
Sexual immorality. Okay, so in this one it says fornication. Okay, and the other one says sexual immorality. Maybe you have immorality, there's lots of different things that can be just immorality, sexual immorality, that type of thing. Whatever that looks like for you, all right? That Greek word is porneia. Does that sound like something we use in English? I hope it does, because that is that same idea. That word, porneia, all right, is a general term for sexual immorality of any kind, whether it's premarital, or whether it's extramarital, or whether it's prostitution, homosexuality, any of those things. Any of those things fall into that category of this porneia, okay? So the first thing it tells you to do is put to death in your members porneia, okay? So it's a very kind of a broad kind of a term, a general kind of a term for all that kind of stuff. So you got to get that stuff away from you. Why? Because if that stuff's in your head, how's that going to translate to what you do? That's the question. And that's what our spiritual trainer is trying to get us to, giving us some good advice on how to stay away from that. We get our head right, we stay away from that porneia, then those sexual acts, then it won't be on our mind, because we're removing it from our mind, so we won't even want to do it, right? So that's the first idea. This idea. We're gonna categorize these into three. I said three areas. Yeah. Area one, we'll say, is I think is how it's spelled. Could be wrong. Yeah, I am wrong. What's the odds on that? Porneia, okay. Porneia, which is sexual immorality. My brain is working too fast. Yeah. All right. So you got that first part. My translation says fornication. Fornication is a decent word, but it's hard to. It's hard to really wrap your head around one word that can really do that. You don't want to say pornography, kind of thing. But we need to understand that it includes a wide berth of things, right? We maybe in the English have kind of nailed it down to a certain thought process, but it's actually a very generalized thing. Second thing is, I have uncleanness. There's also, in the NIV is impurity, and the New Living Translation, it's impurity. Impurity. Impurity is not a bad word either, that uncleanness. I think the reason why they put the word uncleanness is because the Greek word means to be unclean, So that's anything that is not clean, right? So impurity is not a bad word either, because it's anything that's unwholesome, anything that's corrupted, anything that's not clean, like our 5-second rule. It's, it'll build character, I promise. But here we see that that's the kind of thing that we're looking at, this uncleanness, right? Anything that pollutes your mind. Because if it's polluting your mind, it's going to translate into your actions, right? So anything impure is not something that we need to do. These, second thing is impure. Is that right?
Impure.
Sure. It doesn't look right. But it doesn't. Impure, right? So anything that's kind of impure or impurity, that type of a thing, is not cool, all right? We need to get away from those things. The word itself means lustful, all right? In its truest form, it means lustful. So it kind of takes it from something that is not clean to something a little bit more personal, It's not just unclean, it's lustful. See, lust is shame, I'm telling you. Okay. Now, this then moves into this uncleanness and inappropriate images or suggestive images, stuff like that kind of thing. Now we move to the two other things, which is passion and evil desires, right? So the next one is passion. I have lust on that one. Do you have lust? Lust, yeah. Passion or lust. That's the kind of thing that we're looking at here. This is a very, if you see, the English word passion, I think, this is me, it generates an idea of feeling to me. You know, like passion. You know what I mean? But I don't know that you can be passionate about something and it not be bad, right? Whereas the word itself is a little more intense about that. It's a little bit more. It's about lustfulness. You know, it's not about just being passionate about. You know, I'm passionate about, you know, my lawn care or something like that, or I'm passionate about, you know, collecting baseball cards or something. You know, that isn't necessarily a bad thing unless you're spending like a lot of money. But whatever. If you're passionate about that, it doesn't necessarily mean the concept of lustfulness is a little bit better because it shows a desire that it takes a passion to another level where it becomes toxic. All right? So I like that idea of lustfulness. Lust. All right? And then the last thing that it has there is evil desires. I have here evil desire. I have here evil desire. Is that, does anybody have anything different from evil desire? Evil desire. It separated it into two words because it is two words, right? I forgot. Passion. I forgot to tell you about that. So passion in the Greek, it's pathos is the word pathos, and it's actually the root of some of the words that we use today. Pathological, like that type of thing. Empathy, apathy, sympathy, psychopath, all those kinds of things. It's where your mind suffers. The word actually means your mind suffers from the desire for something. It desires something so bad that your mind actually suffers from it, right? If I don't have that new, I remember when I used to, when I was younger, collect like comic books. And comic books come out on Wednesday. And if I wasn't at the comic book store on Wednesday, my mind was suffering, like I'm missing something, right? I have a whole box of comic books I haven't read yet, and I'm already thinking about buying the next one. You know what I mean? I'm just suffering from that. You know what I mean? And I go on Thursday, and it's only a day later. It's not a big deal. But that whole day, I was suffering because I couldn't, you know, that type of thing. All right? Last thing is evil desire. Evil desire is two words, and it is two words inside of our text here. The word desire is the same word in the Greek as it means for us. It means a craving. It means a longing. If you desire something, you know, sometimes when you're hungry, you're just thinking, man, you know, taco sounds good. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, you know what? Yeah, a hamburger, good old-fashioned hamburger sounds good. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just think, that's not so bad. And sometimes you'll desire that, right? So you think, yeah, taco sounds good, or a burger sounds good. Where can I get me a good burger? And then you start running down the list of places that you can go get yourself a good burger, or that type of thing. You know what I mean? It starts to become, so once again, if you get your mind right, it results in an action, right? And desire, this concept of desire isn't necessarily, once again, bad unless the craving takes you to a place you don't need to be. The word passion in and of itself isn't necessarily something that can be good or bad as well. It's that your mind is suffering from something. It can be something bad or something good. But the word that connects those two, whether you look at or whether you see it or not, but if you were to look at it in the original text, you'll see that the reason why passion and desire is connected by the word evil is because it is the context for those two words. Okay? Either one of those words could be marginal type of a thing. But the word evil is what connects those two words and gives them both context. That word evil means a bad nature. So it's a bad nature to be pathos, to feel that your mind is suffering from something evil. Your passion is giving way to something evil. Your desire or your craving or your longing is giving away to something evil. I'm not just longing for something. I'm longing for something terrible or something of bad nature. So these words are connected in context by this word evil. It gives it kind of meaning beyond beyond the scope of what it is, right? Anything immoral, anything impure, anything you're obsessing over that is not of good report or good repute, or it's illicit cravings, it's forbidden things, that type of a scenario. So passion. Let me do that. Let me do that. Let me do passion. Passion. I should have thought about this before. And then desire. And they are connected by evil. Okay? They're connected by evil. They give it context. Right? They give it context. So that basically the byproduct is lust. And the byproduct of that desire is there an easy word I can use? No.
No, evil desire can be that.
Yeah. Forbidden. Forbidden? Is that right? That's an N.
Yeah.
Okay. Not the great penmanship, but it's right. So, that's what it gives way. When you put evil in front of it, that's when it becomes lustful, it becomes forbidden, right? This is this first area that we see, and that we see kind of how this context puts it together, right? Then we can move into the second area, right? Well, before we do this right here, as we're getting our mind right, these things could be byproducts of, they're literally, some of these ideas are things that are mindful also, but they take form in some kind of action.
Physical.
Yeah, some kind of physical action. So if you get your mind right, these things won't be a problem, right? But if you don't get your mind right, it's an easy step to get to here, right? It's an easy step to get to here. And that's the idea. The idea that our coach is trying to give us is don't even mess with this stuff. Don't go near it. Don't mess around with it, okay? If you toy with these things, if you dabble in these things, it's not gonna help you. It's going to be of detriment to you if you once again, if you take a big vat of pure water and you dump just a little bit of raw sewage in it, just a little bit, you know what I mean? A little bit, and it mixes up in there. You may not even see it in there, and it may not even know it's in there. Well, you'll know, but you won't be able to see it, and because you can't see it, well, then your mind thinks, well, it's probably not bad there, but you don't know what you just poured in there, You don't know what's replicating in there. You just are about to drink something nasty, right? But you're thinking, I can't see it, it's okay. But that's how your mind works, right? You can talk yourself into anything given enough time. But if you get your mind right, you don't have to worry about it, right? So that's the first part. The second part, we don't have time for, because my watch just said, stop. that brings us to the second part, okay? So the first three items, boom, 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 give us that concept. If we get our minds right, we understand that stuff is dead to us, and our new life is something different, then these things won't be a problem. But if we don't, they're a big issue, because they're the action that grows from that. Any questions, comments, observations? No? Okay, we'll get to the other stuff after that, later. Promise. Let's pray and we'll be done with that portion of the show. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this opportunity to look at your word and understand the importance of it. Dear Lord, it makes absolutely all the sense in the world, and it was just as pertinent a couple thousand years ago as it was today. When Paul wrote it in the first century, whether it then or for today in the 21st century, we can see that if we can get our minds focused on you, then the natural byproduct of that thought would be positive, not evil. But if we allow that evil thought to take root in how we think and how we believe and how we move forward, then there could be rocky times ahead. Dear Lord, your word tells us so often that you want us to be happy and to love and to be thankful and things of that nature, but it's hard to do those things when we allow evil thoughts to infect our minds. So we should set our minds on things above. We need to focus on you above ourselves. And if we can do that, the natural byproduct of those things are going to be positive, not negative. We're going to see the world in a better light. We're going to appreciate things and people more for who they are. And we'll be able to love unconditionally because we're not putting a condition on who we are or who other people are. So, dear Lord, help us to just kind of embrace that, understand that concept that you are trying to get us, through Paul and through the spiritual coaching and teaching and mentoring, that we just need to get our minds right and set them on things above, not on things of this earth. And great things will be ahead of us. Dear Lord, thank you so much for giving us that simple but important message. Sometimes in this life we think, well, maybe this isn't fair, that isn't fair. We don't need to compare our lives here on this earth to other people, because the truth is, our life is secured in you. Our hope is the blessed hope of being reunited with you and becoming a citizen, being a son or daughter of you in heaven forever. That trumps anything this world can do or produce or provide. So, dear Lord, help us to focus on that alone. Bless this time that we have. Please let these words just stir us to the core and help us to honor you in the life that we live. And we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.